Hey folks, it's Nick Granville. Welcome to Guitar Daily. This is my daily thing I do on YouTube. I'm a Wellington, New Zealand based guitarist, pro guitarist. This is all I do, is play these things for my living. I know, madness, isn't it? So I do these daily videos kind of discussing music and guitar and, you know, all kinds of music too. Rock, blues, funk, whatever's kind of inspiring me at the time, and I'm into all of those musics. So today I thought I'd talk about comping. What does comping mean? How do you approach it? What can you do to be better at it? And this was kind of spurred on. I did a clinic recently with Clay Jenkins. It wasn't actually my clinic. I was there as an observer. It was Corey Christiansen, and those guys were like, come on man, play. So I ended up playing for most of the workshop and kind of being involved, even though it kind of wasn't meant to be that way. But it was pretty cool. But there was something Clay said, and Clay's a fantastic trumpet player if you're not aware of Clay Jenkins. Clay said something that kind of resonated with me, and it was that he said, I've never played with anyone that I wished did more when they were comping. Right? I've never played with anyone that I wish played more when they were comping. That made me think. So let's break down what comping is, right? To comp means to accompany, to support, right? So that was an interesting comment from Clay. It resonated with me a lot. It made me think, yeah, you know what I mean? So let's get down to the basics of it. So what is comping? Comping just means to accompany. So the thing I would say is, like, one of the key things is to be listening, right? If you're playing and the soloist is playing and you're just playing a blanket thing underneath, like, so you go... You could be playing all kinds of chords like that just don't relate to what they're doing, are getting in their way, are disrupting it, right? So the first thing is to really listen. And what are you listening for? Well, there's a couple of things, right? What I'm listening for is the shape of what someone's trying to do. So if I hear them go play a phrase, maybe they go, and I might go, so I'm listening for like the shape of things. Like if there's a little gap, then that might be a little bit to punctuate. But you don't want to do that all the time. If you punctuate the gaps of someone's playing all the time, it just becomes too much, right? The other thing I'm listening for is like what's happening around me, right? If I'm playing with a drummer and a bass player, then I'm listening for like where their groove is, all those kinds of things. And I'm asking questions of myself. I'm asking a question like, what needs to happen right now? Right? If the rhythm's feeling a little loose, then I try and lock it down to give the soloist as much support as possible, right? Like say I'm playing with young students and they're not really, their rhythms are a little bit funky, then I'll kind of lock that in, right? But let's imagine an ideal scenario. Say you're playing with someone great, like Sonny Rollins. What does Sonny want from you? Right? He probably doesn't need you to play rhythm because he's got strong rhythm. He probably doesn't need you to play melody, or right, he definitely doesn't need you to play melody because he's doing that. He doesn't need you to play harmony because he's probably got that. So what do you think he really wants you to do? I'd imagine someone like him wants you to kind of delineate the form of the music, right? So make it clear that this is the beginning, this is when we're getting to the next A section, this is when we're getting to the next B section. He probably wants you to light a bit of a fire under him at times, right? So that, you know, if he's going somewhere that you go with him and you kind of support the music to grow. So that's an ideal scenario, right? And then every other scenario is anything other than ideal, right? So like I said, if I'm playing with young students, I may need to lock the rhythm down a little more. I may need to, outline the harmony. If someone's getting lost, I'll play a chord to sort of, and I'm asking those questions of myself all the time. What needs to happen now? And I'm listening very intently to what's going on around me. And this is not just a jazz thing, right? I'm using jazz as an example, but this is the same thing if I'm playing a rock gig. It just becomes rhythm guitar comping instead. One big bit of advice I'd give with comping is whatever chord you're hearing, say you're hearing this, and you're thinking that's what it needs right now. Take whatever chord you're playing and take off 1 or 2 notes every time. So if I have this B flat 13, B flat, A flat, D and G. Take off the low B flat, now you just have this. That's probably all it needs. Or even better yet, just take off that and just have, right? And just play less in terms of voicings, play less in terms of rhythms, right? Like Clay said, he's never played with anyone where he's wanted them to comp more. The other thing I think about too is how I'm going to connect things, because this chord and this chord, say in a blues, there's a connection to those two somehow, and the connection could be this. To me, it's really boring if people just go and then to the next chord and then to the next chord. Like, create some spice and some flair underneath it. So even that would be too busy for most people, but you get the idea, right? That I'm trying to connect those chords. So if I'm going from B flat to E flat, I can connect it with an E7 to get me the E flat, or I could go, if I'm approaching up to the 4 chord, right? And then what I would do is I go, okay, those are things that I'm hearing, right? I'm hearing from point A to point B and how I get there. Now I'll take out half those chords. Instead of, I'll just go, right? The other thing I think about a lot too is like the rhythm that needs to happen, like I mentioned earlier. To me, what I'm thinking is, don't play too many downbeats. If I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, that implies no rhythm. But if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 2 things were different about that. 1, I stopped playing on the downbeats, and 2, I shortened up my chords. That's the other thing too, is like clash happens when you have chords that are sustained. If you don't sustain chords, there's less of a clash. Like this, for example. That note against this chord, right? If I sustain it, it's a clash. But if I go, you're still left with the sound in your mind, but it's not necessarily a clash, right? So that's kind of how I'm thinking about comping. Like, what's an ideal situation, right? And everything else is some retraction from that. And what do I need to do? Like, I'm always asking these questions of myself, and I always think, play less, try and provide only what's needed. Oh, and one big one with comping that I haven't mentioned yet is don't play too loud. Right, along with Clay's thinking that he didn't want people to play any busier than what they played, is kind of the notion that the last thing he wants is anyone to play too loud when they're accompanying. When it's your solo, rip into it, turn it up so that you're the loudest point. Just play the level where the singer would be in a band, right? The band would be here and the singer would be there. Well, when it's your turn for a solo, that's where you need to be. But when it comes to comping, if this is the band, I'm always like just tucking it in there and finding like the sweet spot. Anyway, I hope that's been helpful. This is just some thoughts on comping. It's a misunderstood subject in my opinion, mostly because it's different every single time you do it. So what you do one time might work, the next time not at all. So you want to have lots of approaches to it so that you can play good music. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Cheers.